Bank analyst Meredith Whitney, writing in the Wall Street Journal today, she says millions of Americans have lost access to traditional banking services like checking accounts, loans, credit cards, because of sweeping Dodd-Frank reforms imposed over the past 4 years. At the current rate, she says 1 in 3 Americans will be unbanked, that's what they call it, in the near future. Time to bring out the panel. Chris Wilson is a Republican pollster and strategist in Oklahoma City. George Jarkesy is the chairman of the National Eagles and Angels Association in Houston. And Jennifer Brandt is a litigation attorney. All right, Chris, what do you make of this?
Well, it's a classic case of unattended, but all in completely predictable consequences. If you make it unprofitable for banks to do business with a certain group of people, then it doesn't take a genius to figure out that at some point banks will stop doing business with that group of people. The problem is Congress is notoriously short of geniuses, and so we have this issue come up. The greater issue here, though, is that another shoe is going to drop sooner or later, and you're going to have people come forward and call for Congress to mandate services to be given to these unbanked. And whenever that happens, it's going to create a whole new set of problems. And it's the classic case of cascading liberalism. I mean, government sees a problem, government regulates problem, problem gets bigger, government regulates it again. Ultimately, they take it over. George, what do you say?
Well, the one problem I worry about, there's many problems with this, and you know how I feel about regulation, Jerry. You know, the government we're way overregulated and burdened by regulation. But the other thing is this is going to create a shadow economy. You're going to have people out there all dealing in cash, and you're not going to have the data that you had prior to this when people were putting their money in banks and using credit cards and things that you were having. So you're going to have this big shadow economy.
I agree with that, and I think, you know, Jennifer, look, at the end of the day, people, if they're out of the banking system, it's hard to develop credit. It's hard later to go buy a house, get a loan, get your kids through college, retire. If you don't have that all-important credit score, you're nobody. What do you make of this story?
Well, I sort of disagree with my fellow panelists because I think this gives opportunity for other institutions to come forward. I mean, already you see places like Walmart and Best Buy and offering some kind of banking services for their customers. And what about credit unions? That's sort of, you know, ignored. But they sort of deal with the lower income people. They don't charge high fees. They outsource their ATM. So that's another opportunity for other institutions or other alternatives to come forward.
People are turning to products that aren't good, products that don't help them build credit. They're turning to prepaid debit cards increasingly. That's a massive business, and it does nothing for folks. I like to see people in the banking system, but your point, Jennifer, about credit unions, spot on. Couldn't be better. All right. Let's talk about more money stories. If you're a CEO sitting on nearly $100 billion of cash, what do you do with it? Well, that's exactly what Tim Cook's problem is at Apple. And while its shareholders want the company to add a dividend, we've got some other options for him. Apple could hit the open road, buying out both Ford and GM, and still have billions left to spare. It could also buy out 4 of America's top stores like Target and Macy's. Look at that. Or why not just take over a whole country? Morocco's GDP comes out to be $91 billion. They could do that. George, what do you say?
Well, it sounds like you're going on a shopping spree, Jerry.
With somebody else's money.
Well, that's the real point is this money belongs to the shareholders, and the right thing to do is if you've reached a point where your growth is not very aggressive, then you have to start looking at paying a dividend and giving that money back to the shareholders. Or if you say, look, the shareholders can do more with it than we can. If we can't make a good return on that money, then they also need to return it to the shareholders. It's not the CEO's money. It's not the board's money. It ends up belonging to the shareholders if the company can't do very well on the returns with it.
Good point, Chris. What do you say?
Well, I don't disagree with any of that, but I think there's a deeper issue here. The guys at Apple are pretty smart. They do a pretty good job of evaluating businesses. And I think it's a bit frightening to me that they've got all this cash, and obviously they want to grow, they want to get bigger, they want their company to do better, and yet they don't see anything out there to go invest in or go buy up in terms of other companies. And I think that says a lot about the economy that exists right now that the Obama and the liberals have created, in that we've got a company with this much money, with this good at evaluating talent in other companies, and they're afraid to go spend their money. They want to hoard it.
Excellent point. Jennifer, what do you say?
Well, I think this company was a conservative company. Steve Jobs, when he was alive, never wanted to distribute the money. But I think they have so much right now, they do have to give some back to the shareholders, especially before the federal tax rate increases. So I think it's important that they get some of that money out right away.
Share and share alike. That's what we all say. Okay, sneaker fanatics lined up outside stores overnight for a first crack at a new outer space-themed Nike basketball shoe. In Orlando, more than 100 officers in riot gear tried to control the crowd going crazy over a $220 sneaker. George, I don't get it.
I don't get it either. You know, we've got all these problems in our country, and you have things that are come out in the newspaper, come out of Washington, come out of press releases and Wall Street reports on companies that are really bothersome. How can anybody get excited about tennis shoes at a time when our country has such more serious issues? I don't get it either, Jerry.
I get your point, but Chris, at least somebody's excited about a consumer product out there, right?
Well, it wasn't a consumer product. I think the untold story here is these shoes are actually made as a tribute to Newt Gingrich's idea of a colony on the moon. And so this is really a group of people that are so supportive of that idea that they want to go buy these shoes in order to say, hey, let's build this colony on the moon today.
Oh, my Lord. Jennifer.
I totally get it. I think it's a great thing that people are excited about a product, that they want to buy a product, and you know, it's a frivolous type of thing. It takes their mind off of other more pressing problems. So there's always going to be excitement over something like that, especially with our young people. So I think it's a great thing. I don't think people should go wild over it like they are, but to get excited over a product, I think is a good thing.
A riot over gym shoes. Amazing. Guys, you did a terrific job. Chris, George, and Jennifer, thank you so much.